welcome to another episode of Unscripted with Marilyn Morales. And before I introduce my guest, I want to remind you guys that the reason why this podcast was started was to bring attention to the need for donors on the National Marrow Registry. Please visit izzy'slegacyinc.org. Right there, you can join the registry. You can save a life in life. You can read all about how easy it is and about our mission. Now, next, my guest today is someone that I met, I could say maybe 2 years ago. I heard her speak. She won an award at that event. So impactful. At that moment, I did not consider myself a speaker. I was just starting out, trying to figure out how to start my nonprofit, and I was there to observe. And when I left the room, I felt like because of these women that had gotten the courage to get up there and speak, that I could do this as well. And Tiffany was one of those. Tiffany Harris, I just said who it is, is one of those women that impacted me. I've been watching ever since. And every time she speaks, moves me to my soul. So let me read, for those of you who don't know Tiffany, who she is. Tiffany is a wife, mother, award-winning international speaker, mindset coach, and mentor. She is an author, 2-time co-author, 2-time recipient for Changemaker of the Year, Business Grammy nominee, and Faith Made Millionaire nominee. And we're gonna unpack all that stuff and when all that happened for her. Tiffany is the founder of an international women's membership community, When Women Empower. Tiffany is committed to empowering women across the globe to shift the way their minds are set so they can soar, scale, and succeed mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. She's speaking my language. Tiffany's core belief is when you shift your mindset, there will be a shift in the trajectory of your life. Let us welcome Tiffany to the show. Hello, hello.
Hello. Thank you, Marilyn. I love the way you read that. And I'm like, that's me. I know that's me. But thank you so much for having me.
Listen, girlfriend, this is incredible. Now tell me, most of those things, did they happen in the last 2 years?
They did, actually. They did. So let's see. So much has happened. And I think the Changemaker Award probably happened maybe 3 years ago, the first time that I won it. And then the second time was in 2022. And that was something I totally wasn't expecting, especially when I kind of do this this inspection of my life, and I just go back and I think about and I reflect, and it's like, I'm a change maker. I was the one out here doing all this stuff and robbing people and being a lookout person and getaway driver for robberies, and I'm a change maker of the year. It's like, oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because you talked about that the first time I ever saw you, right? And you have a presence about you. So when you walk into the room, people know that you have walked into the room, right? Total presence. So you shared a story that night, and I don't know if that's what you want to share tonight, but definitely tell my viewers more about you and your story.
So I cut out a little bit. Can you repeat your question? You cut out.
Yeah. So here we go. Here we go.
Yeah.
So share with my viewers the story of Tiffany. You mentioned a little bit about that, right? Who you were in the past and who you are now. Talk to us about the old Tiffany.
The old Tiffany is someone who had low self-esteem, right? The old Tiffany is someone who was not confident. The old Tiffany is someone who didn't think that they were good enough. They didn't think that they were beautiful. The old Tiffany is someone who didn't think that their voice mattered, right? The old Tiffany is someone who was a people pleaser, right? And so with doing that, I kind of did things just to fit in and to just make people comfortable and not try to cause any confusion or chaos. And that's one of the things that I did when I was in an abusive relationship. I didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't want to make my abuser angry. So I just went with the flow, and I allowed him to ride around in my car and sell cocaine for my car. I allowed him to hide bags of cocaine in my glove compartment. And so, and I allowed him to put me in these different atmospheres because I didn't want to rock the boat. I was a people pleaser. So whatever he said, I would do. So, he told me that my body wasn't built good enough and nobody would ever want me. And I believed him.
Hmm.
I felt like that was the best person, the best thing since sliced bread. And so I stayed, but I think that all stemmed from younger moments in my life where I wasn't happy with my features. I can remember growing up, like I wouldn't smile. So now some people, when they see me smiling and happy on these flyers or when I'm doing speaking engagements. But I used to, when I would smile, like I didn't feel good about myself. But today, you can't tell Tiffany nothing about these lips, okay? Like you
Yeah.
can't tell me nothing about the locks, Meryl. Okay, you can't.
Listen, and you're gorgeous. You're a gorgeous woman. So tell me, you talk about your lips, right? So, and I will tell you as a Latin woman myself, right? And I have full lips, right? I always did. I hid mine too because I would get teased about them.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Teased as a child, bubble
Yep.
lips, and all.
Coolers and all that.
Yeah. I wouldn't
Yep.
wear, and I talked about this with somebody else when we talked about makeup, right? And I always wore muted colors because I would say I didn't want people to see my lips before they saw me, right? Walking into a room, right? So I would never wear reds. I would never wear bright colors because of that, because I was trying to hide myself. Yet now today, people are trying to get fillers, trying to look like us, right? The lip injections.
Right.
Who
Mm-hmm.
knew we were going to be a trend, right? In the future.
Right. And that's the same thing I be saying. You get all these people right, going back, get these what we were born with, what God gave us naturally,
Right.
people are paying hundreds and thousands of dollars for it. Right.
Right. And plumping their lips with all kinds of things. Yet that made me feel inferior. And you're talking about the same thing, yet we weren't, right? But people will choose the things that make you stand out to make you feel bad
Mm-hmm.
about yourself because they don't have that. Right?
Yep.
But it's not until you're older and you realize that and you're able to look back at all those people that would tease you about your hair, about your whatever it is that they decided they were going to tease you about, right? And make you feel that way. It carries over into your relationships. So was that
Mm-hmm.
your first real relationship, this young man that
It
you allowed in your life?
it wasn't my first real relationship, but it was the first time I was in an abusive relationship. And that was the first time I had someone who was not only physically abusive, but emotionally and mentally abusive. Like the way he talked to me, I never experienced that. And
Hmm.
then also, that was the first relationship that I was in where, in my mind, I felt like was as far as physical features, was the best looking person that I had ever been with. And so for me, somebody who had low self esteem and I never thought I was beautiful, to have somebody who looked the way he looked, like he had light brown eyes. Back then, that's when women like braids. I don't know, some people may still like it, but that's not my thing. But he had the braids going back. He wore like the fur coat, so he dressed nice, and it was the eyes. He had the beard. And I'm thinking, Dad, Tiffany, you can pull somebody like that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is something special. So I thought that he was literally doing me a favor by being with me because I thought that was the best.
So this is a narcissistic person, right?
Yes.
That's because that screams narcissism
Absolutely.
to me.
Absolutely.
And they pick people who adore them, right? And so then they pick on them and to make sure that they stay around in order to feed their own egos. And I
Mm-hmm.
want people to understand I've had, friends and loved ones in similar relationships. Doesn't matter your background, doesn't matter how intelligent a person is, how educated they are. Anybody can fall into this, right? Red flags and all, it doesn't matter, right? Because they
Yes.
suck you in the beginning and you have no idea until you're really deep in your emotions. And then they start.
Yes. You are spot on when you talk about it doesn't matter your education. I was in grad school when I met him. Right. So you're spot on. I was in grad school and you talking about red flags, Marilyn. You know, when I first met him, we first crossed paths. I had that initial excitement. I had the initial butterflies. But then, like 2 weeks after that, when we finally went to meet up, I literally, as soon as he walked towards the car, he went to pour the door handle and to get in. I didn't have that same butterflies. I had that stomach flipping and turning and doing knots feeling. I had that thought like God was literally showing me, no, Tiffany, the red flags, the warning signs. I'm telling you what I
Danger.
saw.
Our
Yet
body
like
responds to danger, right? And
I
we
could
don't
see
listen.
it. I didn't listen. I could see it. I saw a liar. I saw a cheater. I saw a manipulator. I saw a deceiver. I saw an abuser. But sometimes when we see these things and our body is giving us these red flags, we think it's just us. So like the kids say now, we think we just tripping. I thought I
Yep.
was tripping. I was like, oh no, this is just Tiffany. Come on, get in the car. We're going to hang out. And I
Yeah.
looked past all of that. And like you said, the more and more we hung out, we ended up getting to a relationship. And he started to kind of, flash his money around and do things for me. I continuously ignored all of the red flags that were there. And over time came him, black in my eye, pulling a gun out on me, pulling my spark plugs out of my car. He would call my phone and ask, "You not dead yet?" But back to the red flags, it was all there, and I did not take heed to the warning signs of the red flags.
Yeah. And I think a lot of young ladies do the same thing, right? They don't listen to that. If Mama Tiffany today could look back on that Tiffany from before as a mom, you're looking back at her, right? Because I say, as a
Mm-hmm.
mother, we love our children unconditionally, right? When I look back at the younger me, I don't love myself that way, the same way that I would love my child, right? If you could look at yourself the way that you look at your child, what would you say to yourself?
Yeah. And that's it. I have to love myself and accept all of me, embrace all of my beauty and my uniqueness, and understand that's what makes me different. That's what makes me beautiful, despite the full lips, despite how I'm built. I have to be able to accept how I was created, and who was for me is going to be for me. Right. And so that's what I would tell, the younger Tiffany. I didn't love myself.
Yeah. And that's the message out there for you young ladies who are listening to this, and even older women, right? Women of all ages. Step one, learn to love yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's a process. That's not easy, because for many women, they've spent years listening to other children, listening to other people, the people that surround them. We talk about the circle, the people that surround you, right? And the people that surround you, you really have to take a look at and see, are they a circle? Are they people that uplift you? Or are
Right.
they a cage?
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Now I tell people you have to look at those people to see who adds value to your life. If they don't add any value, you have to be able to subtract them from the equation. And then God will be able to multiply, things in your life. And the other thing, like you said, you have to love yourself. And then the other thing for me is, and for people who are listening, younger girls or older women, you have to look beyond the physical characteristics.
Amen,
I was
sister.
so caught up on the physical characteristics that I ignored the lack of moral, the lack of values. I ignored everything else because I was caught up on what he looked like on the outside.
Right?
But his heart wasn't pure. His intentions weren't in the right place. So we have to get beyond that physical attraction.
That pretty package, right? So
That
it
pretty
is
package.
looking beyond the checklist,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we
Yeah.
have a checklist of what we think we want when we're looking for a partner, when we're looking for somebody to date. He's got to be this tall, he's got to be dark skinned, he's got to be this, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at a checklist, but is that sustainable? Absolutely not. We need to look beyond that initial checklist to what are your values, right? Do they align with yours?
Right.
What is their view on life? Does that align with yours? That's so much more important than
Mm-hmm.
anything, right? How
Yeah.
are you able to get away from this abuser?
That's such a great question, Marilyn. And I'm telling you, I was so deep in, and because, like I said in the beginning, I just wanted to please him and I didn't want to rock the boat or cause no chaos. I remember one night when I started to argue with him, he gave me this little bottle and it had this like purplish, bluish liquid in it. And he was like, "Here, just take this." I'm like, what? Just take it. You'll feel better. And I'm like, okay. I didn't want to question him too much. I didn't want to make him angry. So I drank it. And I became addicted to it. And what it was syrup. Right. And I
Syrup?
just remember it was syrup.
What is
Yep.
that?
Yeah. And so it was just like a liquid concoction that kind of puts you in this and knocks you out is what it did. It like I
Mm.
remember waking up, I would like doze off to sleep. I remember waking up and my eyes were blurry and I can just see like a red light, green light, yellow light. And I'm just like, where are we? It's like, oh, we in this part of the city. And just like that, I'm back out. And I remember waking up again, my eyes just like slowly opening up and everything's so blurry. I'm like, where are we at now? And so in retrospect, he would give me that so that I would not, cause any chaos or confusion. I wouldn't argue with him. And then he started to put Xannies in it. So now we had the syrup on top of the Xannies. So now I was like out cold even longer. And so on top of that, I was smoking weed every day. And, he would go rob people and I would sit in the car and I would be watching, to make sure nobody's coming, so when he runs back to the car, I can speed off. And so to ask you, how was I able to get away? What helped me? I knew that that was not the life for me. And so when you talk about being with people who would align with your morals and your values, I knew that that wasn't it. I never felt comfortable in that situation. And that's why my spirit was always wrestling with him. That's why we were always, going back and forth. I wasn't okay. And I remember one time he had just went out to make a run and he dropped off some drugs and he put the rest in my glove compartment. And I dropped him off somewhere and I rode around a corner and I said, oh, he forgot this in my glove compartment. So as soon as I went around the corner and came back, the police had already had him hemmed up against the car. And so now in my mind, I'm like, what if he was still in the car with me and they
Right.
pulled us over together and the drugs were in my glove compartment, right? I can be in jail, for this situation. I wouldn't be here right now. So that was the starting point of me realizing, like, Tiffany, what you're in, you need to get out. But I was scared to walk away on my own. I remember one time when I tried to leave him, and he said, narcissist. His exact words to me were, women don't leave me, I leave them, is exactly what he told me. And so I remember riding down the back roads and I knew, so my mom raised me in the church. We grew up in the church, but I got to an age where I left the church and I did my own thing. But I knew at that point, God was the only person that was going to be able to rescue me. And so with my eyes was teary-eyed, my face was wet from crying. We had just been getting high, but I asked myself this question. And if any of you out there are in an abusive relationship or you know somebody in an abusive relationship and you want to get out, you have to ask yourself this question. What will happen if you don't leave? I had to ask myself. And the answer to myself was, Tiffany, you will die. Because by this point, he had already pulled the gun out on me. He already asked me, am I dead yet? And so all I did was I said, God, I need help. That's all I said. And I remember right after I said that, there was a song on the radio. It was called God Still Hears a Sinner's Prayer. Because the other thing was, I thought that because I messed up, because I was disobedient and doing all these things, that God never wanted to hear from me. But as
Right.
soon as I said that, Dietrich Haddon's song came on and said, God still hears a sinner's prayer. And that was reassurance for me that even in my mess, that truck, that car that I was riding around in, I feel like God came right up in there and helped me. And that was the beginning process of me, I feel like, getting this supernatural power and strength to ask for help outside of God. And so outside of God, I went to my mother and let her know what was going on. And she supported me with getting a protection from abuse order. And that's how I was able to get away. We got to
Wow.
identify a support system. Sometimes we are ashamed and we're embarrassed and we don't tell people what we're going through. And that was me. But help is out there. It's available. We just have to open up our mouths and ask for it.
Right. And we know if fear is a big emotion. Fear can control us in ways that we don't need to be controlled. Right.
Yes.
Uh, Tell me something about that night when he was already up. The police had already had him up against the car. What was your next step? Did you stop or did you keep it moving?
I kept it moving.
There you go.
I did not want them to know that I knew him. I didn't want them to know that I had anything to do with him. But here's the thing. Fear is a natural emotion and it's a process. And it's easy for people to say, oh, you should have just left. You should have just walked away. But it's a process because there was a lot of times where I felt like God made a way for my escape. But Tiffany went back because that night when he was hemmed up with the police, he actually got arrested for something else. I could have been done. But here I was caught up. I actually bailed him out of jail.
Oh, my Lord.
Right. And continue that unhealthy, that toxic pattern and everything else that was going on. So it took a couple times for God to hit me upside the head and show me, like, Tiffany, this is not it. You will lose your life if you continue to go down this path.
Right. My God, what a great story. And it's not just a story. You live this life, right? And you were able to, most importantly, get away from it. Because, you know, a lot of women don't make it out, right? They don't ask themselves that important question. What will happen? You will die.
Yes.
That was your answer. You were getting the answer. You will die. So today, anybody who's watching this, right? Today, next week, next month, whenever it is that you're watching this and God is leading you to this message, all right, look at your support systems. Do not be afraid to ask for help. If you don't have somebody in your immediate circle, there are telephone numbers. There are places out there that will help you get to safety, but you have to ask, right? And God is also going to help you, but you got to ask and you got to be willing to accept. Step one. What else, Tiffany? What else can you suggest? Once they make the decision, once they go forward, how can they maintain that? Because fear has a way of creeping in even after you made that decision, right? I'm sure you started to second guess yourself.
I did. I started to second guess myself. But what I also had to do is, again, kind of look at what my life had looked like compared to the direction it was going in, just by asking for help and accepting help. And I'm glad you added that piece. It was starting to get a little bit better. I was starting to feel a little bit happier, right? So I had to do a comparison to what my life looked like then, to what it was looking like in the moment, to where I knew God was leading me, right? And so, yes, you're right. Sometimes it can be scary. The fear might set back in, might have those thoughts of going back, but we have to do a comparison. What was going on when I was in it? How am I feeling now? It can only get better, right? And so we have to look at it that way.
Stay strong. Now tell us what happened next, right? So where did your life lead to next? What happened to Tiffany next?
So, so many amazing things happen, and just keeping with relationships and just loving on Tiffany, understanding who Tiffany is, understanding what Tiffany loved, right? And making a commitment and a vow to Tiffany to never allow anybody to take control over her mind and her emotions. But that was the first thing, right? I had to take back control of my mind. And I tell people, and I did a video the other day, that's what that mental, and I said this to you before we were on another call, but that mental paralyzation, I was mentally paralyzed. Anything that he said about me, I believed it. Any thoughts that he had about me, those were my thoughts. I accepted it. So I had to rewrite the narrative and shift my mindset, right? And understand who I was as an individual. And so once I began to do that, I was able to love all of me. And then at some point I was able to meet my husband. And now we were together for a year and a half. And then we were apart. And it's funny because we did a podcast interview a couple of weeks ago. And he's like, tell the truth, you dumped me. So I did. I did. And I'm like, I don't want to say it like that. I'm just like, we wasn't together anymore. He's like, no, you left me. And so if he watched this podcast, I know he will be watching, he's going to be like, just say it like it was. So yes, y'all, I left him, so yeah, I did. But anyway, we were together for a year and a half. But then after being apart for 5 years, we reconnected and we have now been married for a year and 3 months. And so don't ever listen to the voice of someone else who says you're not good enough. Don't ever listen to the voice of someone else who says that nobody will never want you. There is somebody out there for you. And I'm so glad that God sent my husband my way.
Right. And listen, sometimes you need some time apart to grow, to
Hmm.
mature, so that you can then recognize the things that you see in him and appreciate them. Right. A
Yes,
lot of times we don't appreciate,
I
right?
did. Right.
You
Yep.
didn't. And
You're
I was
absolutely right.
like that too. When I was dating, when I was younger, it was just like you said, very superficial, very much having fun kind of thing. But by the time I met my husband, right, I was done with all of that. And I prayed for a regular guy, right?
Mhm.
I was dating the DJs, the musicians, those kind of guys. And finally, I was like, I just want a regular guy who respects and
Yep.
honors me, right? And that's what God sent me. Here's your
Hmm.
regular guy.
Yes.
Right. And you're going to appreciate that because had I met him earlier, I would not have appreciated the gifts that he has. Right.
Hmm.
But I had to go through that. I had to go through all of that mess so that when the gift finally arrived, I was able to recognize it as such. Right.
Yep. That's
So
exactly what it was.
pay attention, ladies. The guy that you think is not it, he could be it. Right. So
Right.
now you coach, you mentor, right? Talk to us about that. What do you do and how do you do
Yes.
it?
Yes, yes, yes. And so, yes, I coach. I'm a mindset coach. And and so like I talked a little bit about your mindset. Your mindset is key. Your mindset matters. And no matter what it is that you aspire to do or be in life, if you don't have the right mindset, a success mindset, a positive mindset, a faith mindset, a business mindset, if you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to be able to sustain these things. So you have to get your mindset in order for everything else to flow. And so that's what I do. And I've worked with so many different women who are counselors, they're speakers, their wives, they're business women. They do so many different things. And you had said this in the beginning with my core belief is that when you change your mindset, it's going to change your life. And I'm not just saying that, I live that. And that's what I did. When I changed my mindset, it changed my life, and not just with this abusive relationship that I was in, when I was depressed, when I was going through anxiety, when I was going through near homelessness, when I watched my father die, I'm always big on mindset. It changed my life. And so we have to change the way we look at things. And so I do mindset coaching. I have the women's community, When Women Empower, where our mission statement is women empowering women to soar, scale, and succeed. And so I'm a big believer of working with women and helping them to stretch and expand from a holistic approach. Yes, I'm gonna help y'all make money, but I'm gonna help y'all get your mind right at the same time, right? I'm
Yeah.
gonna help your spirits lift at the same time. I'm gonna help you physically at the same time and help you be a little bit more nutritious, so that you can really do all the things that you want to do. And so, yeah, those are some of the things that I do in addition to the speaking. Yeah, we had the opportunity
Everything
to
else.
meet 2 years ago.
And that's the important thing. And something similar that I say, it goes along exactly with what you say. For me, I talk about the simplicity of life. We complicate life, right?
Mhm.
Life is about two things as far as I'm concerned, and that is perspective and choice, right? Again, with the mindset, that's perspective. That's just another way to say perspective. The way
Yep.
that I view what's happening to me, and you can change that, and the choices I make based on how I view what's happening to me. And we
Yes.
can have two completely different outcomes. Again, sounds simple. It is simple, but some people need help getting there, right? And the tips and tools that you teach people is how to get that, how to stop that negative talk, how to stop those thoughts from happening, and how to change it to something else. And that
Mhm.
takes practice. That takes a habit.
Mhm.
And that takes support. So, ladies out there, I encourage you. Tiffany's website is scrolling right there on the bottom of this page here. Reach out, have a call with her, see how she can help you. And I know there's people out there that need your help, lots of people that need your help, right? And that you understand from a different place because you lived it. You're not just talking about it, you lived it, right?
Yeah.
So, Tiffany, this is the question that I ask all my guests.
Mm.
And that is, what is your definition of success?
Yeah. I like this question because I think that the answer is different for all of us because it's based off of your perspective, that you have about success. And so success for me is simply the effort that you put into making a change or a difference, right? And it's not to say that we may automatically reach the desired outcome, but it takes effort. And as long as you keep putting in the effort, eventually you'll get to where you want to be. And I'm a strong believer that, even looking at the effort we're putting in at these micro levels, so some people may say, oh, success is, Tiffany, you've been able to speak on stages, you've been in Liberia, heard in Kenya, in Nigeria. But for me, that's great and all, but before I can talk about success at that macro level, I have to identify success at that micro level. I ask for help. If I never asked for help, I wouldn't be able to do these things that I'm doing. So asking for help is success. Identifying a support system is success. Shifting your mindset is success. Because if none of that would not have happened, you would not be in a position. And I tell people, even with speaking, right? If I never asked for help and identified a support system, I would not have given my soul the mic, right? So that I can be the deliverance for somebody else. So that's my answer to your question.
That is a fantastic answer to my question. Love it, love it, love it. Tiffany, once again, thank you so much for coming on here, for blessing us with your presence. And any last words?
Yeah. And so what I do want to say is, because I know, like you said, sometimes we go back and forth and it's hard to get to break away, and sometimes people give up on that process. And so one of the things I like to leave people with, and I think you saw it on my LinkedIn page, is my process, or something else that I do when I feel like giving up, when things just get too hard, because I could have given up and said, you know what? I don't want to try to ask for help. I don't want to identify a support system. I'm going to stay in this toxic relationship. And so these are 4 additional bonus tips we giving y'all that's going to help y'all. And so when you all feel like giving up, I want you to first pick yourself up physically. Second, dust yourself off emotionally. Third, refill yourself spiritually. And the 4th thing is to start over mentally. Your mindset matters. That's it.
Guys, pay attention. Those were some fantastic, fantastic words. Thank you so much once again. And for my guests, I will see you next time.